Ladies, gentlemen, am I often forgotten, but certainly not by me, Soul Runes. Welcome to the channel and welcome back to another video. Today on Reddit there was a post from the JMods themselves showing a proposed change for Animate Dead and the Fractured Staff of Armadyl. The idea being that Animate Dead and Fractured Staff of Armadyl are slightly too powerful and have been for some time, and could use a little bit of tweaking here and there to help balance them in the current combat meta. Now this post is open for discussion. This isn't a list of changes that are already being made or anything like that. It is an open discussion right now, and they're looking for feedback, so I figured, hey, I'll put my voice out there into the ether and see what happens. So first up, with Animate Dead, they are basically reducing the amount of damage at which it can fully negate, and are taking typeless damage out of the calculation completely as far as damage reduction. And when looking at the numbers that they were talking about as far as damage reduction, it doesn't seem like too bad of a nerf at all. In fact, I was quite surprised with how little of a change there actually was as far as damage numbers are concerned. And if you want to see the numbers and the post entirely, I'll leave a link in the description below to the Reddit thread. And I see this as a good change because Animate Dead basically can negate just about anything in its current state. However, I do like the fact that Animate Dead is able to bring tank gear into the light a little bit, because before Animate Dead, tank gear was absolutely pointless, for lack of a better term. Way back when Acta was used for its defensive resets in a couple, very unique situations, but for general day-to-day PvM, tank gear was just not really used because it really didn't provide that much benefit for the player to warrant the lack of DPS that it provided. So Animate Dead, I think, is a good spell, and I'm a little bit sad here seeing that initially it hasn't been brought up to allow access of Animate Dead for melee and range. Now, we don't know their plans in the future with necromancy. Maybe there's some things coming up with that to make melee and range damage reduction unique in its own way, but if Animate Dead is going to receive some type of nerf, I think it should probably be nerfed to the point where it could be balanced among all the other combat styles as some type of fix for now. However, without a clear timeline, this is kind of hard to talk about because there isn't really anything we know about necromancy or anything that's coming with that. So for now, overall on the Animate Dead front, I think it's fine, but we shall see what the future holds as far as that is concerned. Now, where the bigger amount of changes happening is with Fractured Staff of Armadyl. So in short, what is mainly happening with FSOA is that the auto attacks it used to spew out for its spec will be replaced with an ability type hit. Think of this change of something like crackling back when it used to be a magic hit and then it became its own ability damage, and that's roughly what is happening here. And the ability damage is going to be a flat thing, being that it's not really going to be affected by too many other things, i.e. different ability usage isn't going to affect it, what spell you have auto casted is not going to affect it, and I think this is a slight missed opportunity so far in the initial post, and I would like to see something there as far as utilizing different barrage and other spells like things like Ruby Aurora or Xang and Insight Fear, and I think this ability could incorporate elements of those, so if you're using certain ones, it could take benefit from that. And instead of it just being a flat single type of ability damage, it would be nice if it maybe was a percentage based off of the current ability used or something in that light. Now, the thing I find puzzling the most is that we all want FSOA to be more consistent in terms of damage output, in terms of usability, and they have addressed this slightly with the fact that the ability damage from a proc will not be able to crit multiple abilities afterwards. And what I mean by this is with FSOA, you were able to crit an ability, then the auto attack would go out. That auto attack could then crit, thus spawning another auto attack. On the last third of that little thing, they've basically lopped that off and done away with it and made it to where if you get the hit to proc, then it will do it. It can crit, but it's not going to set off, kind of like the nuclear chain reaction afterwards. But the main problem I have with this is you are essentially just lowering the bell curve and slightly shrinking it. However, it is still going to be quite inconsistent based that the special attack is completely reliant on crit chance. They're not doing away with the crit chance of anything to proc these hits. They're not introducing anything new as far as, you know, stacking up stacks or something like that, similar to Bow of the Last Guardian, or possibly pulling in effects from other spells or abilities to then proc out something else as well. And this, I think, is a major missed opportunity as far as the initial thoughts are, because the inconsistency problem with FSOA doesn't really so much lie with how many crits it's going to spam and kind of the nuclear reaction way, but with the source of these procs being crit-based rather than hit-based. A great example of this is with Death Spore arrows in range, being that to build stacks with Death Spore, you must crit instead of just getting a hit out. And, as we all know, sometimes you crit and sometimes you don't. And so sometimes you get your nice Death Spore proc very quickly, you can build up, do your Death Swift and Incendiary shot, and you're off to the races. And sometimes you can burn an entire Rapid Fire, Gricko, and 2 other basics and still only be on 3 stacks. And with keeping that in mind, that is exactly what is happening with FSOA and what will continue to happen with FSOA, as it is still a crit-based proc. And it's where I think the love-hate relationship of this staff has come into light the most, is that when it works and it's pumping out the damage, you absolutely can do some of the biggest damage numbers we've ever seen in this game. However, you could do the same exact rotation and just not get that good a crit chance, and it's a literal coin flip of whether you had a good phase or not. Now with the staff in its current state, the bell curve seemed to be high enough to where even the low points were still bearable. You know, it didn't really affect boss kills too much. However, with this proposed change, not only are you losing damage on the hits themselves, so the ability damage on average is going to be 90, I believe the range is 60 to 120, and with an average of 90%, the ability damage, this is 10% less damage than Crackling 2 procs. Now granted, you will be seeing a lot more of them, but in general, auto attacks from a 2-hand weapon in a Sunshine were hitting anywhere from 5 to 6k, and just off the top of my head with some mental math and thinking about it, I think Rack hits anywhere from 1.7 to maybe 2.8k inside of a Sunshine. So I can see the damage of this staff going down quite drastically with these proposed changes. So what would my solution to this be? I would instead go from a crit farming method with the staff itself and go into some type of hit-based stack building method. Or if you wanted to keep it really simple, it could even be something where every ability you do, it fires a percentage extra as its own ability of whatever the base hit is. Now something like this would have to be tested to make sure that DPM values aren't going off the charts, but you could do something where, like, for 30 seconds every ability hit that goes out and doesn't splash gives an extra hit of anywhere from 10 to 20%. So that way it's more based on doing a good rotation and rewards the input of doing said good rotations without being too reliant on crits in the first place to get out said rotations in the first place. Or you could take a feather out of the hat of Bow of the Last Guardian and have it fire off some ability after a certain number of stacks. Now something that might be unpopular to say, but I think that auto attacks themselves should also proc these types of hits, so that way it incentivizes the use of 4-ticking. Now you might be thinking, 4-ticking, I don't want to do any of that elitist garbage. And notice how I use the term incentivize, not require. Because with a spec like this, you could just go ahead and use 3-tick abilities and just spam out a bunch of abilities, and you will still gain the benefits from a staff spec. However, if you want to do extra damage and use more skill expression, you could do even more. You could also throw in additional modifiers to change the damage of the ability triggered with auto attacks versus regular abilities if you wanted to do something like that. However, something like that might get a little bit convoluted, but the point still stands. So in short, the proposed change is it's going to fire ability damage instead of auto attack damage. And while I think the premise on its own is a good idea, I think in the current proposal, it is a step in the wrong direction, taking out any spell selection out of the mix, other than Sanguinite and Insight Fear for getting the benefits of each. I would love to see something there with some type of skill expression as far as auto cast selection is concerned. And I think the hit and damage as far as the current ability numbers are concerned are quite drastic, and it ignores the kind of inconsistency of using crit and crit meta in the first place. However, being that this is a discussion phase right now rather than a full-on implementation phase, I would love to see something incorporating hit-based procs for the special attack rather than crit-based. Alrighty, ladies and gents, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to see some discussion there, as well as posting on the Reddit thread. But I could sit here and ramble for another hour on about this and potential ideas and whatnot. So let me know what you think down in the comments below, and we'll go ahead and wrap up the video here. Maybe I'll make a part 2 once some more definite changes or the proposal is amended in some way, and continue to talk about this subject in the future. Anyways though, have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next video. Peace.